After South Park was successful in the late 1990s, video game adaptations were to pop up after it was proven successful. The first one to release came to the N64 and PC, and one of the most interesting aspects of this game is that it was the 3D first-person shooter. This is different than the usual flat art style that the show is known for, but I think there was a reason behind it. There's a video about IGN review scores by Moriarty, and he mentioned an interesting point when discussing Dr. Mario for the N64.
Dr. Mario 64, a 5.0. Why? Because it didn't completely change the entire way that Dr. Mario from the SNES was played.
I find this interesting since the gaming industry back then was all about innovation since 3D was the hot new thing. Now game developers would attempt to add 2D elements or flat out make the game 2D or even have a pixelated art style. Later South Park games follow this as well with their RPG games by Ubisoft, but a recent South Park game going back to the 3D style would come out called South Park Snow Day. This would turn out to be a roguelike game that basically was very bare bones of content and lasted less than 10 hours. I knew going in it was going to be pretty short, but the way the game was handled made it more of a mess than anything. So without further ado, this is South Park Snow Day. The game overall has you make your own character and do one of 5 chapters that are correlated into a plot involving the previous games in terms of how this game would work, and a never-ending snow day that was constructed by Mr. Hanky, the ship character. You would start by choosing which abilities you want. One of them is a standard card and the other will be a special bullshit card. Then the enemies would pick theirs and then the game begins. The game is intended for online multiplayer for up to 4 players, but due to me not having friends and no PlayStation Plus account, I decided to play the game by myself, which make it more annoying since I have to worry about computer players either doing nothing or just dying when I need them the most. You would have to beat 5 stages in a chapter with a predetermined boss like one of the main 4 characters or the ship monster at the end. Usually in between them, Jimmy would get you another ability card or one of the goth kids will add perks with it. You can also upgrade those abilities by finding chests or just use toilet paper to make them automatically stronger. The game tends to be an action game, but the combat is extremely slow and the controls are very jarring for the type of game it is. The camera at first goes way too fast and the weapons don't even do enough damage, given that you'll have to face hordes of enemies for the majority of the duration of this adventure. There's also chores the game will give you, such as lighting up beakers, but this is mostly just a cooperative action game. Outside of combat, you can change your weapons or outfit or have permanent upgrades to a skill tree that could have been introduced earlier and could have been less expensive. But I think they did this because they expect players to do the missions multiple times, and while there's some levels that were challenging, including the 4th one is a massive struggle for me, I didn't see myself playing this game after the credits, and that's just a me thing since I treat gaming as a project, but rather this is extremely lifeless for what is a South Park game. It made by the people who own South Park, and given their involvement, they have the right to use their characters and likenesses. While it's accurate to the show, they don't have the energy to bring out the best performances of the characters. The entire voice cast felt like they want to get this project over and done with. This may be myself to blame since I don't watch the recent seasons, but I felt that from the cast, then why bother? I'm going to bring up the presentation that makes the majority of the game in this 3D environment that feels basic and brings out the lights and shadows effectively, but it doesn't feel right given the show's flat 2D art style. I don't think it works that well even with animation they are trying to copy into this game. It does have some of the animation from the show from the intro and ending, which is cool, but not enough to change my view of the game. It's literally a waste of time because of the content that was available wasn't engaging or doesn't felt randomized, because I'm assuming this is supposed to copy roguelikes. Some levels can be replaced and some just exist to give you abilities, but most of them are required for story progression and it makes it more predictable. And when I do have to repeat the stages and placement of stuff is the same as well. This makes it more or less a multiplayer action game that will easily be forgettable by 5 months or even sooner. It's kind of depressing, but I don't know what to tell you. The game has some decent stuff overall, but doesn't have much or compelling content to give itself the money it deserves. Even with the lackluster amount of options in the levels, it's going to be forgettable unless you're a diehard South Park fan or people buy the game at a discounted rate for a gift. This game is balls.